Everyone. Good to see everyone. Actually pulling the shades for the sun, which was very nice. Kim and I were talking earlier today, and I was saying it's nice to be in town hall this week for the town elections and to see so many friends behind their masks, and with such a great turnout. So happy to see our friend Shelby, and she's excited for her three more years on the Board of Selectmen. So it's great to see so many people enthusiastic about participating with the town. So great. Well, hi, Karen. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I think I heard Alan volunteering to read. He's done such a good job.
I actually offered I would do it for him. I have the agenda up. So if you want to call the meeting to order, then I'm happy to read it.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Kim.
Call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on that?
No, I just want to make sure is Westborough TV all set?
Karen? Great. Oh, Jeff, good.
Great. Okay, so pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Economic Development Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. On Westborough TV's online platforms, which include youtube.com, Westborough TV, and westboroughTV.org, or on Charter Channel 192 or Verizon Channel 28. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Kristen, for distributing the minutes. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to see them. But why don't we start with a vote to approve the minutes from February 4th? I'll make a motion to approve. Someone like to second that?
Edinburgh seconds.
All in favor? I guess we each say individually.
Leonardo, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Sorry, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Steinberg, yes.
Sullivan, yes. Oop.
Steinberg, yes.
I think that's a quorum. Okay, so moved. So we do have a full agenda today, and we're really, with the discussion that we have in front of us, we're hoping to really engage everyone in discussion today. So there's been a lot of thought and effort that's gone into the various topics, but we do want to get everyone's thoughts. So don't hold back as we move ahead in the discussion. I'm excited to have Kim start the meeting with the update on our EDC coordinator.
Yeah, good news. I'm happy to announce that we were successful in our recruitment effort. In fact, Zach is joined us on the call today, but Zach Bowner is our new economic development coordinator starting the week after next, the 15th, I believe, Monday the 15th. So Zach has joined us for a little while today. He's just here in the capacity as an observer, but wanted you to have an opportunity to do a brief, meet and greet. Zach is coming to us. Most recently, he has been with McKinsey & Company as a business analyst. His background is he has a bachelor's in computer science from Columbia University. Zach has a lot of enthusiasm and is very excited to be coming on board. So thank you to everybody on the committee who participated in the process. And I think we'll certainly provide, I think at your next meeting, next month, we'll allocate some time for maybe Zach to take a few minutes and introduce himself and maybe talk about his interests. And at that point, he'll have a whole 2 to 3 weeks under his belt. So looking forward to that. So Zach's office will actually be located over in the community development offices in the Forbes building. So in the past, that office was in the town manager's office. So it's physically going to be located across the street. So just in case you're wondering, looking for him at some point, that's where he'll be. So welcome, Zach.
Yep. Welcome, Zach.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
I'm looking forward to working with you all. Thanks.
I think it's a great team within the town, very enthusiastic, focused, and a good group on the EDC. So I'm sure you'll enjoy working with everyone. So great. Well, why don't we move right into the EDC mission, goals, and priorities. We had that on our agenda last month, and with the exciting presentation that we had from the town of Hudson, we weren't able to get to that, but we all agreed that it was a good use of our time. So Alan has put in a great deal of effort, and I know he's solicited participation from all of us, and so we're looking to have an engaged conversation, and with the thought that we've got we're at an exciting time with the town, with hopefully coming out of the pandemic, with a new coordinator coming on board, and with a dynamic team within the town. So I think it's a great time to be revisiting our mission, goals, and priorities. So Alan, please take it from here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen very quickly.
Hi, Christy.
Okay.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
Can folks see that okay?
Yes.
You
Yes.
see the ED mission goal screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So again, we were going to go over this last month, but I was more than happy to forgo the time for the continued discussion with the team from Hudson. I thought that was just incredibly educational and more than a little bit inspiring as well on the direction we can go. And so just sort of recap where we've been, where we're going in the next steps to coming up with a set of goals and assessing our mission. Our current purpose is stated in our charter on our website. 4 pillars: retain and attract businesses, promote development, meet with businesses, and advise the Board of Selectmen. We talked about this at some length back in December and felt that there was no urgent need to change, that what we think we should be doing is an EDC fits within those 4 pillars. Okay, we then did we've had a couple of rounds of surveying of possible goals and looking to scope those. And this is a list. I know the print is a little small, it's hard to read. Hopefully everyone had a chance to see these in advance of the meeting. And this is some of the raw data of the responses. We looked at these goals. People who submitted put a rough scale, small, medium, large, and whether this was something that was tactical or we saw as strategic. From there, clearly a lot of common elements between all of these goals. And I started, how do we process this? And so I sort of saw them falling into 4, general categories. The first being downtown. A lot of ideas about the downtown business district and in the East Main corridor. A desire to have, more businesses, have it more vibrant, more lively. more tax revenue generating businesses there, more of a destination for consumers and a desirable place for other businesses to locate. The second category, broad, was about outreach, how we engage with the business community and with the residents, both in helping keep businesses in Westborough, helping businesses in Westborough who are looking to grow do so, and how do we outreach to new businesses or to businesses located in other communities who are looking to relocate or looking for additional locations. The third category was programs. What can we do programmatically as an economic development committee to further our mission? And that could be programs such as events we might hold or sponsor or participate in, as well as things. There was a suggestion of a standard format TIF that we might explore for attracting restaurants and other businesses into the downtown, aimed at smaller businesses. Again, I'm not talking about the viability of any of these and what's allowed and what's not. I know that TIFs, and I should have picked that one probably because TIFs themselves are a complex issue. But as an example of if we were going to do something along those lines, that would be a program that we're running. Our current small business grant program, the Empty Storefront initiative, those are programs that we run. And so there was suggestions for programs. And then there were other ideas that also either alone or in addition to other categories fall into the advise program, where we would be advising the Board of Selectmen or potentially even the planning board on things that we might see as appropriate to do for our mission, either in the downtown area or throughout the town. And so you can see across the ideas that were submitted, there's most of the suggestions fall into more than one of those categories, which to me gives a lot of credence to the validity of the ideas, and it was a pretty good spectrum of ideas submitted. And so we have a lot of possible goals. Now, one of the business books I read, a long time ago was called Right Away All at Once. Unfortunately, we don't have the bandwidth to do everything all at once and right away. And so when we look to narrow it down, a little more detail about the goals and the categories. In the downtown area, you can see the list of the suggestions here, whether it's promoting the vacant storefront in our grant program, not only to attract qualified applicants, but to send the message that we want to work with businesses to be successful in our community, and there's opportunity here. The Worcester Regional Research Bureau did a study on downtown revitalization and identified Westborough as ripe. Their key unit of measure was the number of available liquor licenses, and they were looking how the Canal District in Worcester and downtown Marlborough leveraged liquor licenses to bring in restaurants as a leading edge to bring in and attract other businesses. Certainly last month from Hudson, we heard about, it's no small task, but to create a downtown business improvement district and that public-private partnership to further the development and the vitality of downtown and the East Main corridor. And then others here as well, as far as, wayfinding signs, land use and zoning changes to improve foot traffic, as well as even looking at other policies. So, in talking with, business owners and others, we know from the parking study that was recently done, we have enough parking downtown. It's not all where people want it to be. And so the wayfinding and walkability is important. But suggestions included, outdoor dining, pop-up retail space, or even, rules that allow for valet parking, so that if someone's looking to bring a restaurant in, they see that they can, bring in valet for their busy nights and make it easier for customers to get to their door, and have a good place nearby where the cars can be parked. So possible goals and outreach. A lot of support from the ambassador outreach program, but the suggestions lean towards specific goal-driven engagement rather than just generalized outreach, with a focus. Most of the comments and suggestions related to outreach were also tied to other programs and opportunities, such as the ones we're running or the EV charging station grants, which reminds me, side note to Bonnie, I have a half-written draft letter to businesses about the EV charging program that I need to finish and get to you. I apologize. Again, promoting the town and EDC programs, such as our one-stop shop for permitting, the vacant storefront, the business grants, continuing with our business videos, the one we're working on, as well as, yeah, I think I shared out an interview that was done by a high school student for the Lobby Observer, where they were interviewing new businesses about why they opened in Westborough and why they went forward during a pandemic. And so there's some great content there that I think we can share and promote. Quarterly events seem to be a suggestion about events for the consensus, certainly our annual gala and 3 others, attending other events, and being very key about who our audiences are, so that, you know, it's not every business group we want, it's not every chamber event, it's really reaching brokers, reaching corporate decision makers, small business owners, and key affinity groups was the feedback. And then a lot of support was expressed in a number of different ways to have some sort of newsletter or membership system where, you know, a periodic newsletter goes up or timely updates can be sent, so we have more contact and visibility and mind share of the local business community, as well as businesses we're targeting to move in or to expand into Westborough. So we have some good programs running with our one-stop shop, the grants, the storefront program, and the gala. From the goals suggestions came out some new ones, such as easy TIFs. Again, I won't get into the logistics and doability of that here. Another new suggestion was to partner with banks for some form of local business development loan program. Seems like those seem to me like some good out-of-the-box thinking is another opportunity. As well as a number of different suggestions that really roll up other things to create a broader downtown revitalization program. And that, you know, we have a number of other goals that have been suggested, ideas. We've got the technical consulting grant and other research that's been done. We've learned a lot about, you know, the business improvement, you know, district. Things of that nature could be rolled into a very strategic program around downtown revitalization. Under advisory, sort of the Easy TIF program comes up there again, as far as, you know, are there other grants and other programs that we can leverage to expand what we're doing. You know, continuing to do research and recommend bylaw and zoning changes for responsible and effective business development. Continue to periodically self-evaluate our mission and goals, and if need be, recommend changes to the Board of Selectmen to consider, and then actively support town efforts to address the wastewater management issues and the allocation on that. I'm not sure how much physical support we can do to that, or if it's letters of support or, you know, testimony, whatever, as that process goes forward, but that was a suggestion. We'd have to explore that further. So as a straw man, all of these goals seem to fall into 2 big strategic areas. And this is, I believe, my last slide, and we can open for discussion. The first strategic area is a downtown revitalization program, where we would leverage the grants and the technical consulting. It would be data driven, and we can incorporate several of the suggested goals, including what we learned about the business improvement district process and some of the downtown urban planning from Hudson, and maybe use all of those ideas, maybe some of them that come in and say, you know, this is what we're going to do. The second strategic area is comprehensive outreach and sort of pulling in all the outreach activities, the Galen 3 events, the newsletter or membership system, focused ambassador outreach, and an effort to continue to refresh and increase the amount of marketing we do. Whether it's, the videos that are underway that's being worked on and others, the website, developing case studies, and even working on getting, on placed articles. So one of the suggestions was that, you take the fact that we had a restaurant open up downtown in the middle of the pandemic, and they're successful in doing so. That kind of story is a good story that could be placed in the Worcester Business Journal or the Boston Business Journal, where, the stories about the restaurant and how and why they did it, the message is that, of all the places they could have done that, they picked Westborough and why, and show that we're a good place to, bring your business even when the economy is uncertain. And so that's, a summary of, the information that's been shared, and how I've broken it down. At this point, I'd want to open it up for discussion, and effectively look to see how we move towards setting a limited set of achievable goals. Right? I look at this slide and I think this is great. I want to do it all, but the reality is, I think we need to, pick and choose and be careful how we commit, ourselves as a committee to these efforts. So, any questions? Any comments? Christy.
Yeah. So Alan and I have had conversations before about, the enthusiasm and sort of the need to really limit the goals. I would recommend at this point that these goals be, sent over to Fred and to Zach, and probably have a conversation with Kim, so that you can kind of work, so that the three of them can work through, once Zach gets on board, what is really the work of the EDC versus the work of potentially other staff or Zach as EDC coordinator. Because I do think that we're talking, a lot of these things sort of some of them are staff driven, and really should be a goal of the staff. Not that the EDC is setting goals for this position, but is certainly saying, these are things we're interested in, who should be responsible for that. So I think that would be a good next step. I think that Alan's right. We've talked about this many times, that this should really be, there should probably be 3 to 5 goals for the upcoming year, so that we can really accomplish some of these things. Then I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but I do have a concern with the easy TIFs, but we could talk about that.
I have to share it because it was a suggestion.
Yeah.
But I understand that, little things like laws and regulations and reality, with the State Department of Finance come into play.
Just in terms of, I think the selectmen, if I'm sort of comparing it to the other processes, have had sort of brainstorming sessions like this in the past. And then we take these and we say, well, who's really responsible for some of the ideas that you have? So I think that might be some good work to initially set up with Zach and Kim and Fred, and then maybe bring it back to you at your meeting, at a future meeting, as a suggestion.
Okay. And then if Zach, Kim, and Fred reviewed it and said, these are items, I guess I would look for two components of that, which is one, if some of these components of the 2 strategic goals should be led by staff, who would do it. Then the second part of that is, but what role or support would they want from the EDC, right? And then the second component is, if they think it's something that is appropriate to be led by the committee and put in the committee as a goal for the committee members, what role do they see staff needing to be able to provide to support that?
Yeah.
So that we don't overload staff, we don't overload the committee.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Sense of the boundaries.
Yeah, I think that that's fair, and I think that that would be good information. And I think that in taking this very large list, we would also understand that there would need to be prioritization at some point once they were able to show you sort of who would be responsible for what. Then the question is, what do we want to accomplish in the next year? Because I think we all know, I mean, I don't even have to say it. We all know that we're not going to do all of these things, but some things might be higher priority than others.
Okay. And then is this something that we could set up to formally vote on at the April meeting? As far as establishing the priority and say the goal is to achieve the top, 3 to 5.
I would look to Fred to
So-
see what he thinks in terms of if he thinks that that's an
It's
achievable
It's a
timeline.
tight schedule. Zach, you're in the deep end. No kiddie pool here.
I'm excited for the challenge.
Kim and Fred have seen these multiple times, so but let's just see what they think in terms of that timeline.
Just off the cuff, Alan, that would be an aggressive timeline, but not to say it's not doable.
Okay. So
What if we were to say, given that Zach starts mid-March, what if we were to target, giving a couple of weeks there, and then maybe they report in to us for discussion, kind of an update at the April meeting, and then we all plan to target if it's a vote for the May meeting.
Yeah, I think that's more realistic, Bonnie.
okay, that definitely makes sense.
Excuse me. I have my hand up. So these are all great suggestions. A lot of these are regulatory. That means town meeting action. I see zoning, bylaws, land use, all of that involved. You're also in the middle of a master plan update. These things are all things that should be given to the land use and regulatory subcommittees of the master plan for incorporation in the master plan. Because when you go to town meeting to get these bylaw changes, you're going to strengthen your position dramatically if you can say it's part of the master plan. You asked for it. Here it is. We're giving it to you now. I don't think the two efforts can run on separate tracks. They have to be folded in together. So I think when you discuss what the possibilities are here for prioritizing these goals and I guess wish list, you really need to have the planning department at the table because some of these things are already doable given the overlay district and the mixed uses that are allowed by the downtown planning overlay district. I think none of this or a large part of this is not new ideas that need new regulation. Some of these can be accomplished under the existing framework that you have in place. It's just a matter of understanding what the process is. So I think that having a 2-month horizon to move forward is extremely ambitious because you need to have this, get the support of the master plan committee. And there are many members of this EDC that sit on the subcommittees to the master plan. So you'll get support. It's just a matter of getting part of the process. And to that end, I'd like to ask that these goals be added to the master plan webpage because that allows the public to see this and get excited and interested and supportive of the ideas. So I would really like to ask the EDC if we can share this on the master plan webpage.
Okay.
So I don't want to answer for the EDC, obviously, but I think we would want to figure out how we want to share it to your webpage, Jim, because I think what we don't want is for the community to see this and assume that these are the EDC's goals for the year.
Right. That would be.
But,
Okay.
but I think your point about the master plan work is an important one. And I think that it might be that Fred and Zach, and even in talking to you, are going to identify some of these as things that should just be referred over to the master plan potentially. So.
And like with respect to, zoning, land use and bylaws, we don't, as part of this process, there are no specific zoning changes, land use changes, or bylaw changes that have been suggested, right? It's that as part of part of our goal would be to look at those in the context of what we're trying to achieve as a committee and as an economic development function, at which time they would obviously go to, through the regular processes for it. So I guess my question is, you're feeling that the master plan should recognize that, the EDC, part of the master plan is that the EDC, if they see a need for a possible zoning bylaw or land use change for the, for downtown revitalization, that they should explore it and bring it forward for consideration.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, that's so.
I think there'll be a lot of support particularly because we have 2 subcommittees that deal with these topics. And if you take a look at the goals and the action statements that are already in the master plan, a lot of these things are already being discussed and formulated, being fleshed out. So I think this is a good time for this to be shared with the master plan.
Okay. And what would you suggest is the best way to do that?
Well, Fred is on the regulatory group in the master plan. I think Christy is in the economic development subcommittee.
Yep.
I'm on the climate change subcommittee, which doesn't necessarily react to this, but because town planner, I'm on the leadership group, and we talk about downtown revitalization all the time. So many of these things are things that have already been discussed in the subcommittees. Particularly, you spoke about wastewater management, and you talked about downtown revitalization and mixed uses. Those are topics that have already been discussed in the master plan subcommittee. So I think the timing is very good for this, and I think it'll be very supported.
Okay. Do we plan on doing a presentation or just sharing slides, or?
Do you mean to the master plan committee?
Yeah, or to those subcommittees? I mean, how?
Can I just, I don't mean to interrupt, but before we start sharing with the master planning, I mean, a big part of the master plan is to look at zoning, land use, and bylaws. This is a suggested goal of the EDC. I don't exactly know what we're sharing with them, other than, hey, we think that zoning, land use, and bylaws is a good thing to involve the EDC in. I mean, there's nothing concrete here or recommendation that we're making to have input to the master plan. I think that it's too broad right now to have any real contributory impact. I mean, I think there's no specifics. I think this needs to be parsed through a little bit before it can have any impact at that level. Just to.
I think I understand that, John. I think that's a good point. I do think, though, I mean, I'd like to hear Christy's point of view on that because she's a member of the EDC subcommittee in the master plan. I think these things are good to introduce to them at this time because they haven't finalized their goals and objectives yet.
I think it's fine to send them along to the subcommittee, to the EDC cut subcommittee. But I think we need to be very clear that they're not a presentation. You know, I think we've received input from others in just sort of a email format that we can incorporate or not. I just think we need to be really clear that this is not a list of the goals of the EDC. This is a list of, the list of sort of the result of brainstorming, because I don't know that they've been fully adopted, or I know they haven't been fully adopted, and we wouldn't want to make it look that way. And also, I think some of them are going to be done, you know, as we said before, by staff, which can also be part of the master plan, but we just need to be clear that this is just sort of a result of brainstorming as opposed to the EDC's goals.
Does the timing work if we wait a couple of weeks until there's been the opportunity for Fred, Zach, and Kim to kind of go through the results of the brainstorming and to kind of divide things up between what might be municipal staff versus priorities of the EDC, and at that point post, these are thoughts that we had. Does that work with the timing for the master plan economic development subcommittee?
You still have time.
Yeah.
How much time, Jim?
So the next meeting of the overall advisory committee is going to be the end of March. I think the third Thursday in the month of March. You'll be receiving an email about that soon. That's of the Master Plan Advisory Committee. And then we'll have a reforming works session in April. So I think you're really looking at getting the information to your subcommittee in March and discussing it to see if it can be incorporated in April.
Okay, so we wouldn't be able to meet that timeline based on the process we discussed prior to talking about the master plan.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, we might be in a position if we were going to discuss it at the April meeting. I mean, we wouldn't have voted on what we all agreed, but at least it would have gone through review by Fred, Kim, and Zach, and kind of dividing things up.
Yeah, there are a lot of important things here that can be supported by the master plan. And I think that we're not going to disregard them if they come in a couple weeks later, because the final plan won't be put together till May. So, I mean, you still have an opportunity. And I think if the EDC subcommittee feels strongly that these should be added, they'll make that point.
Okay. Do we want to, thinking about the timing when Fred, Kim, and Zach review it, do we want to, at that point, sort of draft, a memo or a short presentation that, a couple less formal than a memo, slides, whatever, that says, these aren't established goals, but these are, this is the brainstorming, the direction we're heading in, right? And which are preliminary suggested for staff versus EDC, and so that the folks working on the master plan know something's coming. I mean, I'm trying to figure out the best way to facilitate the communication to those subcommittees.
Well, the EDC subcommittee is myself, Amber Bach, and Lester Hensley. And then like Jim sits in the leadership group with Lester. So if we're just talking about presenting to the EDC subcommittee, I think it's pretty simple for us to carry that message forward.
So the reason that I'm asking for this to be on the master plan webpage is because yesterday we discussed this. The leadership subcommittee discussed this yesterday, and Lester and I and Hazel, who are the leadership subcommittee, talked about the importance of these goals because we've all read them. And that's why we wanted them to be involved. So we are aware of them. It's not news to us, and we realize how important they are and want them to be part of the master plan.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how you put the goals up as goals of the EDC when the EDC hasn't voted on them yet.
What if we rebuilt this, instead of saying goals, we said, initiatives under consideration, and not say them as goals, but, or concepts, concepts to be pursued, and, or concepts under consideration, and take the word goal off, because that definitely sets an expectation, but simply represent the information as saying, these aren't goals yet. These are concepts we're exploring, and, that we're continuing to explore and we'll prioritize.
Maybe
that we would like represented in the master plan. I'm not sure of the exact word, but.
Will these goals in this format appear as draft goals on the EDC site? No, not until they're formalized.
Good question.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't speak for I shouldn't have shaken my head or whatever, but I think that I don't think it makes sense for you to put these up until you have a chance to really evaluate what your goals are.
I think it's too early. I think they should be parsed first and narrowed down a little bit to at least take out some of the stuff that's duplicitous with other departments.
Okay. I mean, I'll say that there are definitely people who have become interested in the goals process we're going through. Those folks are watching these meetings. And so this, I mean, it's even not posted, so the information's out there and the recordings that, are on Westborough TV and stuff. But, I would say, don't publish your goals until they're goals and they're prioritized. But as far as, sharing where we are today with the master plan advisory committee and the subcommittees, maybe, talk about these as, initiatives or concepts for economic development that are under consideration by the EDC. And, explain that these are going to be refined, they're going to be prioritized. There'll be an assessment of roles and responsibilities with respect to staff versus committee members, and will eventually result in a prioritized list of goals and identification of which of those goals, we'll be setting for the next year. And sort of just say exactly where we are in the process. But that the request is that as concepts, we'd like them to be considered as part, or support for these be considered part of the master plan. And as far as, how specific we need to be, rewording it to say that, take that zoning land use bylaw lines, because it seems we may be tripped up on that one in particular, or say, that we don't have zoning land use or bylaws today, but just say that, should the EDC identify, zoning bylaw or land use concepts where, that they think should be considered to support downtown revitalization, that they would bring those forth, for consideration, which, through the normal processes, right? But just set the master plan so that they understand that, if they want to include it, to say in the master planning that, ideas for zoning land use or bylaws might come, from the EDC. That's wouldn't be a surprise. It would be, okay, that's a normal course of business. That's an expectation that could happen. Does that?
I guess I look at it that the EDC is a vehicle to implement the priorities and the goals that are agreed to in collaboration with the master plan process, so that we're viewed as a means to carry forward and implement these mutually agreed upon priorities. I don't know how best to communicate it, but I think we just want to make it clear that we're all on the same page, and that the EDC will be involved in the implementation.
Okay.
So Bonnie, during this whole discussion, just to kind of support or talk to what you're saying, is that the master plan is already identified in a couple locations that downtown is an important area, and there may be some zoning attached to that. I don't think it's necessarily the EDC's place to weigh in on the zoning. I think the important part is that once the zoning is in place through the master plan, that then the EDC is behind that zoning, whatever it may be.
So
Right.
I guess I would say I would disagree a little, because one of the things we learned from Hudson at our last meeting was that potentially not changing zoning and adding additional restrictions or complexity gives you more flexibility. I mean, even, what really struck me was that they went in the redesign and reconstruction of the rotary and the sidewalks and the pedestrian right-of-ways was done with economic development grants as opposed to mass DOT grants and funding. And that kind of decision and direction gave them a lot more flexibility in the design, because they weren't beholden to mass DOT rules that they might have felt would have been arbitrary or limiting in some way. I think we need to leave room for that kind of, possibility. And when and whether, I did clump zoning and land use in bylaws together, but, even for me, bylaws for downtown redevelopment might be, rules about pop-up retail. Now, Hudson also said, maybe the bylaw isn't the way to go. Maybe you just want a policy, right, that gives you more flexibility for that, or for, valet parking or other things you might want to do to encourage business development in the downtown. So I hear what you're saying, that we're not gonna write the zoning rules and land use rules, but I think it's fair to expect that the EDC, if they saw a need for a change, that they would be comfortable, and it would be appropriate for the EDC to bring up the issue and request that it be, even do some of the investigation about economic benefits and impacts, and provide that information to the planning department, the planning board, who would then work forward through the regular process to decide, A, is this something to do, and B, what does the actual zoning change or the bylaw, or for town bylaws through the Board of Selectmen look like for going. So it's not that we're becoming the zoning entity or the land use entity, but that we're just saying we may be an initiator as well as an arm or a unit that helps execute what's in place.
I think it's fair to say that the EDC will have an important role in the downtown redevelopment and bid, but it's not, certainly isn't the only entity, right? And so I think that, I think a lot of the things that we're talking about are going to be worked within the community development department with staff and brought back for comment and response, and certainly open to hearing ideas. But I think that in terms of, if we just sort of said the EDC is considering the zoning and the bylaws, we have to be a lot more specific about what that means, I think, is probably what Fred's point is.
Okay.
So I think the master plan committee and the planning board heavily value the input of the EDC in making recommendations regarding what they see from the business community in the downtown and all the commercial districts in the town. So I know we certainly have in the past, and I know we'll continue to do that going forward. We had that small business roundtable, which was attended by about 20 businesses or business representatives. That was another form of input to the master plan that this group, this EDC, had part of as well. So all of those are inputs. But given the level of discussion that we've had about this topic, it would seem to me that caution is the way to proceed in terms of what you publish, whether it's on one web page or another. And now that I'm hearing that, I tend to agree with what both John and Christy have said, that it's better to wait until you have it more formalized, it more thought out before anything is published. Because sometimes people see something, they latch onto it, and they don't let go of it. It's better that you give them clear understanding of your direction and before you publish anything.
Pete, I think you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to?
I did, and I'm glad that the other conversations have occurred beforehand.
Okay.
Zach, I am the lone ambassador in this group, the last man standing, as you will. In the past, we have had several ambassadors, and their largest role over the last few years has been providing a pool from which to draft people effectively onto the committee, because for years we have thought it would be a priority to do outreach to some of the big employers in our community and offer them a chance to give input about what they might like to see happen in town, because we want to keep them in town. But the pool of ambassadors, of which we did have several, largely got to the point where we were waiting for the person in your position or about to be positioned to basically build a table of who are the people we want to reach out to and when's the last time we did it, so that we can ask them again a year later. I guess I would point out that Alan's bullet on the last page, which is to focus the ambassador program, is one that doesn't have any complications with the master plan effort. It is something that is basically something that can be done, but in the past, we have waited for it to come from your position. So I would just put my oar in encouraging that be one of the things that can be done without a lot of complications. And I'd love to get to the point where we want to go back and recruit a few more ambassadors to be able to go out and do that work.
Great point, Pete. And Kim and I were talking about that earlier, and we were talking about adding the, revisiting the outreach program and kind of fine tuning what we looked as what that program looks like, and having that be one of our goals, because it's definitely, we have our EDC members and we do have ambassadors. We also have individuals that have expressed interest in the last several months in joining us. And certainly they add to our pool of future members, but they also add to our ability to leverage, expertise of people that are within our community, which is how we started out with the ambassador program to start with. But I think you're right that right now, especially while we're in during the pandemic and coming out and not at a point where we're actively in front of, people, it's a great time to be getting our, our database, our spreadsheet, and, identifying our prospects and getting our house in order so we're ready to get out there. So I think that's, a great point. And Pete has been our most active and, effective, and continues to refocus that the outreach really is our priority.
Be happy to
Because we're hearing
brainstorm
from the
with Zach
community.
when he comes aboard.
What'd you say?
I would be happy to brainstorm with Zach when he comes aboard.
Right. Thanks, Pete.
I would also add to our list of goals, which is not as exciting as some of the ones we've talked about. It's really just looking at the EDC membership. I think we've heard a lot that the EDC is made up of a lot of town staff, and especially as we're delineating the difference between the role of the EDC and the role of the town staff, it probably makes sense to look at possibly expanding the EDC opportunity or membership opportunities for more of the business community, and have town staff just support the EDC. So I would really like to see us look at that. And that's a town meeting vote. So that's something that we would want to probably explore for a potential October town meeting change. That's something that we have recently done with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, because initially that was a lot of town staff, and we've since changed it to be a lot more resident inclusive. And I think that we're finding that that's working really well, because town staff is always going to be available to these boards and committees as needed.
Okay, so sort of action items and next steps. I guess I would suggest that at our April meeting, we get an update from Fred, Zach, and Kim on where they are in the analysis process, and then look at that point in time, sharing some information with where we're at with the master plan leadership team in the specific subcommittees. Whether it's the list we talked about today, or we pull some things off that we're not ready to share because they're not specific enough, but that we start that communication process so that if there's any additional verbiage that those committees think need to be done to include some of these components, and they think it's worthwhile, that they have time to make that assessment and do their work. And that we wouldn't present these as goals, they wouldn't have been voted on as such, but as, things we're discussing and considering that we want, we'd appreciate their consideration on as well. And I realize there's overlap with the work they're doing. That's always great to hear. There may be some new ideas here, and we can put a little more definition around it so that it's more clear what the ask is.
Alan, I like the way you broke things down into downtown and comprehensive outreach. I think that was good. One of the things that I heard when we were, when Hudson was presenting, was a great deal of collaboration among the community. the different, whether it was local businesses or other organizations. And I think that I'm sure, this is something that's apparent in the master planning process, but we have a lot of, constituents, whether from the statewide level, our involvement with Mass Econ, the regional level, the resources through 495 Metro West, and then within the town, we've got the chamber, the Rotary, these different organizations, and we all have similar interests. And I just think if there's a way for us to identify collaboration and maybe some type of a quarterly, discussion among these different groups to share our vision, I think that would be helpful, because we all only have limited time and resources. And I think there may be efforts underway where we can all work together. And that may be part, Jim, of what you have with the master planning process as well. Great. So I guess we will move on from the discussion to the downtown initiative and a recap of the Hudson presentation. I think we've somewhat talked about it, but Jim, thank you again for having Hudson in. I thought we all, appreciated that and found it to be really, I think it was very inspiring and got a lot of ideas. So I think we have some things underway, but I don't know if you have thoughts you want to make on that as to where we go from here.
I think Hudson and Westborough have a lot of similarities, not the least of which is the Rotary in the center of town, and how Hudson redesigned their Rotary and brought storefronts out to the street. That's the key. I think we can do something very similar to that. We're going to need to obviously have a survey of the downtown, the Rotary, the width of the public way, et cetera. But I think the most important thing, and the point that was driven home by the former president of the Downtown Business Association, is that we need to form a bid, and the leader of that effort needs to be an enthusiastic, willing, and energetic business person. It can't be brought about by town government. The business community tends to trust their own, and I think that point was made. So we need to find a community leader in the district that will champion that effort. I know it's not an overnight thing. I just put that idea out so people can be thinking about their relationships with people in the downtown.
Yeah, my mind is spinning on that.
Todd, do you want to?
I want to say something as it relates to the bid. I think before we decide we want to jump in and form a bid, I think there's much more research that needs to be done. My experience with bids in the town of Amherst in particular has not been a positive one. And quite frankly, the way I and my tenants in Amherst view the bid is it's just a tax. It's just another tax. And they don't feel that they get much benefit from it. So I think it's something that before we think we want to dive right into this, I think it's something that definitely warrants a little bit more research before it's something that we think we all might support.
That's a really good point, Todd, because when we talked about this with business leaders in the Rotary 20 years ago, that was the exact comment that they had. I think some of it is exactly what you said, a lack of information or understanding of the benefits as well as the structure. But can you share with us some of the real concrete reasons why the business people feel that it's just a tax? Is it because there's no inertia, things don't get done, or the decisions that are made, or what's your experience with it?
My experience in particular is with the town of Amherst, where our buildings are located. We're at the end of the downtown business district. My tenants feel that we're kind of lost and forgotten out there, and we don't necessarily get any of the benefits of the bid. There's not a lot of, they do some sprucing up downtown. They kind of leave our block alone, things like that. There's areas where they have ambassadors that pick up trash in town, and they don't really spend much time down on our block. So I get a lot of complaints from our tenants as it relates to that. And quite honestly, it is, it is passed through to the tenants in their rent as another tax, if you will, and it's a few dollars a square foot. So it adds up. And I think that, as these retailers are struggling now, I'm not so sure. I think that you're going to see that a lot of the landlords are going to have the same attitude towards the bid, that it'll be something that they pass on to the tenants in their properties, and it could have an impact on the rent. So it's something that I think we need to, again, just consider and do some research on this. And I think if you had some experience 20 years ago talking to downtown business owners, I wholeheartedly feel that we should do that again, before we decide this is something we want to do.
And I would,
that's just my opinion.
No, and it's valuable information, because I think one of the things that it sounded like Hudson did is they talked to businesses about if there was going to be a bid, what would they want it to do and what their priorities were. And one of the things he said is that once the bid was approved, they had a list of projects ready to go, so that there would be, so that they were ready to have some quick, small projects, but quick projects that would show results for that additional cost to the businesses. And you definitely would have to have visible, constant motion, right? I've heard from businesses on South Street that, wish the new street lights had been extended down South Street and not just, West Main and a little bit on East Main, right? That they felt sort of, well, no fancy street lights coming to my part of the downtown. And so equitable services, all of those issues have to come into play, so that whether you're in the center of the district or the edge, the programs that are being done benefit the businesses, and do it. And so that's important feedback. I think it could educate us on the approach and the messaging, and even how we launch.
Thank you. Kim, do you have anything further you want to update everyone on the vacant storefront program, or any activity on the grant program?
Okay, sorry, trying to unmute there. We did receive notice that the state has assigned consultants for the local rapid recovery program, and additional information will be forthcoming next week. There is a call that I'll participate in on Tuesday, and we should know more about the rollout of that program shortly.
Great. Has there been any activity with the grant program? The last activity we had was with Dairy Queen and some of the changes, but otherwise, anything further?
No, they've, Dairy Queen submitted for part of its reimbursement, and I just reminded the applicant that we had put a timeline. Those funds needed to be expended by the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. So I just reminded him of that. We haven't had any, at this point, we haven't had any other inquiries.
One thing, Alan had surfaced to all of us was the success that the town of Ashland recently had with their pop-up. And I wanted to just mention that Mass Development does have the Commonwealth Places program that they've used throughout the state. And I think there are a few success stories now that might be something that we want to pursue. And maybe discussions with the, I don't know if it necessarily is part of the local rapid recovery program discussions, or whether it's just outreach to Mass Development to learn a little bit more about the where they are with the Commonwealth Places program.
Agreed. Yeah, the person who pointed me to that actually did so saying, with the comment that the plaza between, where the subway used to be in Town Hall could be a great place for pop-up.
Mhm.
And even potentially working with the landlord on that subway space.
I'm sorry, but that's right outside my office. That's not gonna work for me.
So you don't want like food trucks and new retail and
Only if they play music during the day.
is
Yeah.
that is that a not in my backyard from a member of the EDC?
I think
Only on the weekends.
Town of Northampton might have done something with an alley that I remember reading about through Mass Development that they had used, where they had used the Commonwealth, the Mass Development's program. But I guess I would just add it to things that I think are worth us pursuing that are existing programs that are out there.
I have lots of visions of John opening his window in the middle of the afternoon, yelling at the people outside.
Great. Well, thank you on that. I think it's all exciting discussions we're having. I'm happy to, I want to thank Karen Henderson for joining us from Westborough TV and Jeff Poole. And, once again, comment on how fortunate we are to have them in the town. And I'll pass over to Linda, who heads up our video subcommittee, just to update what we've been doing and just maybe pull in Karen. Good to see you, Linda.
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm late. A little bit of a crazy day here. We had a water break, but I'm glad to be here now, and I'm glad that I made it for the video discussion. Although I would love to catch up with and hear about Alan's presentation, because I was really interested in that as well. So our subcommittee convened earlier this week, and Karen gave us a great update on their continued progress on our Why Westborough video. And I believe it appears she has shared documents with all of us with scripts for us to review. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Karen to kind of, as the expert, fill us in on what's happening.
Great. So yeah, I'll just give you the quick update. Yep, we're making some progress. We do have our shot list pretty much set, and we have been getting footage from that shot list. So whether it's storefront or drone footage, or I was telling the group that one of the people that works here, Holly, was over in Worcester the other day getting some footage over at WPI, of students and some signs for the part where we'll mention, colleges that are in the area. So it just ends up being a lot of, 2 to 3 second shots, really. So it's always an interesting process. You can spend a long time trying to get a 3-second spot. But we are just kind of going through and checking those off as we pull that together. And then at the same time, while we're getting our shots, kind of have a draft script done and talking with the group about how exactly we're going to pull that off. So we've got the script, the thought of whether or not we end up with a narrator. We obviously have some interviews that we need to get done. So we'll start to break that script up with who's going to say what, so we want to make this comment about our infrastructure, who's on the spot to make that statement. Sorry, the sun is coming in and causing me trouble. So, so that's exciting. The other thing that's good is Jim sent me, after the last Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting, or maybe it was the public meeting, but kind of the draft of the visions statement from the MPAC, and just trying to take their vision statement and align that with some of the messaging that we will have in Why Westborough, which just seemed to make sense to us and kind of gives us that cohesive marketing and statements from the town. So I did take that and we incorporated a little bit of that, both the wording and the some of the, they kind of had buckets as well. It's a little bit more focused on the town and living here and all, but there are certainly some themes and points we could bring in. So I think that's a really good step in the right direction. And then I'm just happy to hear about Zach. And as soon as I can kind of connect with him and get any kind of input that he has, we definitely will incorporate that and work with him on that, just to make sure that he's in agreement on that. So I know he'll be overwhelmed when he comes in, but where we can get a little bit of his attention to take a look at it, I'm happy for him to be involved in it. And that's about all. That's where we're at. Continue to work. And I hope that one of the things I saw, on Alan's list of initiatives, be careful, not goals, concepts, was to have videos, some business videos, which again, I would be happy to help with. So whether we do some of those, Westborough TV does some, you guys, I've sent all of you the, Shop Local Westborough that we started. And we have a few of those. We have the couple that we've done that have been specific kind of to the pandemic that you saw both of those, maybe with the people kind of like, why would you shop local, for great haircuts, for flowers, and all those videos. Those to me, I think it would be great if we put those out on the EDC website. It's kind of, again, what the town does to support our businesses. We have a couple of those that are more in depth that we had done. Like we did one on LCK that was more like a, 6 or 7 minute kind of chronicle all about how Holly Kenny started her business and, a little background and what they have to offer. And our plan was to do a whole series of those. So I would love to do that and just make those videos available. Again, if they're on that EDC website, I think it just shows like, here's what the town, happy to like kind of partner. Here's what the town's willing to do for these businesses. And, people seeing those and seeing those business people who are happy with how things are going here would be good. So we have a few of those done already too. So another thing I'm happy to continue with or partner with some students on, if that's of interest to the committee. Thanks.
Thank you. I think it's really great that the video that Karen's working on is also aligns with what we've been talking about, about having the EDC's initiatives align with the master plan. So the timing of everything is great. And also our discussion about ambassadors and certainly having Karen and her team as a resource and really a primary, quote, ambassador for us. So we'll probably need your photo and bio soon, Karen, to add to our website. So, great. So I think from there we'll move over to Jim. I'm not sure if you have more to provide for your update.
Probably the biggest thing recently is the fact that we had our second master plan public hearing. We had 54 people from the community in attendance for that. We had 8 breakout groups and discussions at 15-minute intervals, and where the facilitators cycled through their different areas of concentration through the groups. We've since that time received several significant substantive comments that are going to be posted on the master plan webpage for people to look at. These are substantive comments to the master plan's goals in the various subcommittees. So I think those are good things. We're reaching out to a diverse group in the community. We have a profile of who attended the meeting. The one age group in town that doesn't seem to participate well is the age group of 20 to 29. Startup families, probably very busy with their children or with their careers and don't have time to participate. But if you're in the community and you know people in that age group, please encourage them to participate in the master plan. We're also going to be receiving site plan review proposals for 4,400 technology, which is the former Data General site owned by Caruth Capital. There's a tenant that's going to be proposing a shipping use at that, and those who are on town staff will be receiving that site plan very shortly. We just received it today. I'm going to review it for completeness before it's sent out. Also, the Partners Healthcare, which is now called Mass Brigham at 1400 West Park Drive, is shortly going to be submitting a proposal for their day surgery healthcare facilities. It's about 250 employees are expected there. It's also good that the West Park Drive extension project is occurring now, meaning the subdivision plan is going to receive approval probably in the month of April, very early in the month of April. That will dovetail nicely with this new proposal for 1400 West Park Drive to relieve traffic, spread the burden. That's what we call it, making sure you spread the burden so you have less traffic at the intersection of Connector Drive and Research Drive. Also, 8 Technology Drive continues to investigate possibilities for a new tenant. That property, which is owned by the Ferris Development Company, Dave Ferris. So that's another one for the very near future. So we're going to be very active in 21. Spring and summer are going to be a very busy time for reviewing plans.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Fred?
Sure, real quick. We have some businesses coming on to Route 9, which is a good thing. Some of the buildings that were vacant for a number of years are starting to come back to life. Shakur's building has sold. That's the one past Lowe's, sorry. I haven't actually heard from that new owner yet. We had a preliminary meeting with them, so I won't get too far into that one. Hopefully that'll go forward. Nissan is supposed to be, they have actually pulled a building permit to revitalize the building that was at the corner of Indian Meadow and Route 9, 273 Turnpike. So hopefully in the near future, you'll see a Nissan dealership come to life there. 400 West Park Drive. They're anticipating, I'm sorry, not West Park Drive, my apologies, Freiburg, 400 Freiburg. Verizon's now talking to us about putting a second building up on that property. So that's good news too. There's some growth going on there. Where else are we going? And there's another building on Turnpike that's hopefully getting revitalized. They haven't finalized the P&S, so I won't get into the specifics of that, but that's further on down at Turnpike. Another building, the fiber building, if you will, that used to do the reconditioning of cylinders, oxygen cylinders, whatever the heck they were. That building may come back to life too in the near future, hopefully.
That's the FIBA site, right, Fred?
Yes. 80, I forget the number. I'm going to say 80 Turnpike, but I don't think that's the right number.
Do you have an update on Olympus or?
Sure. So Olympus is feverishly working as we speak to finalize their punch list. Fire and myself have done final inspections. They hope to have a certificate early next week for occupancy. I don't know their immediate plan. I know they're not going to have like 1 million people into that facility. The lower 2 floors are research, production, whatever. It's actually, boots on the ground on the lower 2 floors. They have their cafeteria, general office, not meeting space. Their upper 2 floors are office space. They have a lot of cubes in there. I don't know that they're going to bring a lot of people in initially. But they should be, at least you should see some activity on the site in the next few weeks. That's their goal, I believe, because they said they'll get the certificate hopefully next week.
And what about Amazon Robotics?
What about them?
I was wondering what the latest.
Well, they have a massively aggressive schedule we found out this past week. They're actually, so what I can tell you, in the facility they're in now, they're running at least 6 production lines, 6 or 8. What they're telling us is that they're producing about 1,000 robots a day, if you can believe that. So they're cranking. They're really cranking. They're hoping to get the main body of the next building sometime in April. It seems to me to be like crazy aggressive, but we'll see. And they hope to have full occupancy sometime in late fall. I don't know how realistic any of those numbers are. I don't really have a good handle on that, but they're going to town. If you've gone by that facility recently, they've almost skinned the whole outside of the new building. And they're aggressive because they need the space. From what we're being told from the Amazon people, the representative, Jerry DeWolf, very nice guy, he said they're growing leaps and bounds. You just can't keep up with it. So they're very aggressive.
Have you had any dealings with Stellas at all? I know they're, it's.
Very little. They actually came in and did a building permit a couple months ago to kind of reconfigure some of their space inside. They changed a little bit. I don't know that they really populated that facility a lot.
Right.
I can certainly reach out to my construction buddies that have been working there.
Yeah.
we kind of lost touch when John left, to be honest with you. We never reconnected
Right.
with like somebody at John's level.
Yeah.
I
Is
did a
that,
walkthrough there the other day. They've struggled because of COVID a bit and really had to reorganize their working groups.
Right.
The clean rooms, they haven't really moved into the clean rooms or the vivarium yet because they're sort of reevaluating what they're going to do in different areas with different teams of staff. But they're starting to get people back in there. There are people working there and a lot of lab space is being used. They're doing it in shifts. They're really came to a sort of a grinding halt for a little while, but they're hoping to get into that lab, the clean rooms and lab space in the future. You know, not too distant future. I think they're anxious to do it. They just have to sort of sort out what they're going to use it for.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, Bonnie, to like generally, I think what you're going to see, and Mr. Egan was a big opponent of this, if you will. I think you'll see a quantum shift kind of in Westborough. You're going to see a lot of the office space go away, and you're going to see e-commerce kind of start to take off a little bit. It already is in spots. I mean, we do have some of that already, but I think you're going to see more of that in Westborough. I think we're going to get away from some of the office uses, if you will, into other things, and e-commerce being that kind of driving force now. That's it. I have to get some more questions.
Yep. Does anyone else have anything further to offer for outreach or company activity in the market?
I actually have another couple that I should have brought up earlier. So I was reached out to today by the Marriott Corporation that owns the Marriott, I call it the Marriott Extended Stay, but it was the first facility that allowed long extended stay in a hotel there on Connector Road. 25 Connector Road is their address. They are marketing and repurposing that site. They're no longer going to be suites for rent by the month, which is basically what their intention had been for 25 years, 30 years now, probably 30 years. That's kind of a big loss, I think, for us because they really were the best facility in town for that type of rental market. We have extended stay, a couple of them. We also have the Sonesta Suites, which is also rents the rooms by the month. But the Marriott Corporation really was the first to take that on, and they're trying to reposition themselves in the market. Part of that is COVID. Part of that is the market for traveling executives has changed dramatically since the advent of being able to telecommute. They just see that they need to be ahead of the curve. So expect some movement on that site. Currently, they called me about possibly converting the site to multifamily. I discussed with them wastewater concerns and the inability to deliver that kind of water usage, but I did refer them to the DPW engineering department to talk about the wastewater. So that site will probably undergo a change. And then lastly, many of you know that Amazon was required to do a quarter study on Otis Street. The road safety audit for the intersection of Route 9 and Otis Street was completed. That was a study done in concert between MDM Traffic Consulting and Mass Highway District 3. We held the road safety audit the first week in January. The study was completed on Monday and sent to us. I sent a copy of that to Christy. If anyone wants a copy of that, just let me know. I'll be happy to send it to you. It's a really good document. That was a very fascinating study. It was a 3-hour live and virtual presentation completed.
Is there a recommendation for changes to the?
Lots of recommendations, like 40 recommendations. I put together a memo that highlighted probably the 10 most visible recommendations, and all people talking about signalization changes, but more lane changes, signage, pedestrian crossings for both people on foot and by bike, sidewalk changes, islands of refuge for pedestrians. That's kind of a no man's land intersection. It's the highest crash rate in town.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other updates? Pete, I know you've had a lot of communication with SCORE, and it seems that you've got a lot of valuable workshops that you're offering to small businesses Are you seeing a lot of activity with the entrepreneurs and small business community?
I guess I would say that it continues. The Worcester SCORE chapter, which I'm the administrator steering requests to the best person in Worcester County that we have as a volunteer. We have about 40 requests a month, and that's pretty stable. I do have to say that in the last couple of weeks, it's almost like, well, hell, we always give our advice for free, but it looks like maybe the word got out because there's been an awful lot of activity recently. And I don't know if that's a signal of people seeing the light at the end of the COVID tunnel, but it looks like there's certainly a lot of entrepreneurial mindset that is reawakening.
Todd, you mentioned earlier when we were talking this week, I heard you talking about activity that you were seeing. So I don't know if you want to provide any market feedback.
No, just similar to what I mentioned last month. I think that we're seeing some good activity. To Pete's point, a lot of on the retail side, a lot of smaller requirements right now. People out looking to do, 600 to 1,200 square feet. Startups, entrepreneurs, just good activity, and we'll see if these deals start to get signed. So.
Anyone else? I don't know, Derek, on your end, your DPW has done a great job keeping us all, keeping things flowing. Anything you'd like to add?
I'm glad February's over.
Yeah.
It's a long month for us over there. So
Yeah.
no, we're looking forward to it. And anything that any recommendations that you have for the downtown, just please let us know as we move forward. I just did a complete streets extension to May 1st, and that process will be wrapped up by then. It's been a very, very enlightening process for us on how to improve pedestrian sidewalks. I mean, we have a wonderful list of projects now, 48 items to look at and bundle up and improve all sorts of areas in our community. So we're looking forward to it.
Good. I think you'll be a key part of this downtown initiative because I know there are a lot of ideas that you have.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you to Jeff and Karen for joining us and for recording the meeting. I know we do, as I think Alan alluded to, there are definitely people that have expressed interest in monitoring the EDC meetings and even in participating. So maybe we'll be able to get them on board as ambassadors. But unless anyone has anything further, our next meeting will be Thursday, April 1st at 3:30. We'll carry on with that schedule, and we'll look forward to having our new EDC coordinator, Zach, join us, and hopefully he'll have the opportunity to talk with Fred and Kim, and we'll have further discussion there. If anyone has anything else they'd like to add to the agenda for the April meeting, please let me know. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Edinburgh seconds.
Leonardo, yes.
Steinberg, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Williams, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Alexander,
Sorry,
yes. Alexander, yes.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Kristen.